Where's Greg? There we go. Councilman Polika. Councilman Polika. You're wanted on aisle 1, Councilman Polika. Good evening. Welcome to the September Monday 12th City Council meeting. I invite you to join us in a start of mindfulness. I open up the meetings with a quick mindful moment to get our attention focused and fully arrived and ready for our community conversation today. So this is not mandatory, but I invite you to close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so, or just gaze downward. Shake out all the tension from today of your Monday. Find a way to be relaxed and alert. Bring your attention to your breath. Take 3 inhales. Inhale. Let it all out. Inhale. And out. Slowly. So give yourself permission to let go of this busy day. Come present into this space with everybody here. And I invite you to be curious and thoughtful and compassionate and open as we discuss city business today. So let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Mr. Clerk, we need roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem James.
Present.
Councilmember Leaks May.
Here.
Councilmember Mikulski. Here. Councilmember Polika.
Here.
Mayor Piana.
Here. Next up is the approval of the agenda.
Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Moved by Councilwoman Leaks May and supported by Councilwoman Mikulski.
Leaks May.
Yes.
James. Oh, excuse me, Mikulski.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Polika.
Yes.
Piana.
Yes. Next up is presentations, and we have, next up is presentations, and the first up is for a presentation of the 2022 Ferndale Beautification Coneflower Award.
My name is Ann Gallery. I'm the co-chair of the Ferndale Beautification Committee.
And I'm Ed Minus, and I'm the chair of the Beautification Commission. And what we have here is we're very proud to present the Coneflower Award for August 2012. It's actually 2022 and all. It happens to be August, but it's the yearly Coneflower presentation. And Michael Cooney and Michelle Cooney and Shane. And I'm going to mess his name up, but Chigoriski, won it. And they, oh yeah, come on up. And it's 618 West Maplehurst. And we really like this. I liked her yard. She's done a lot of work in it, and she has some things that she'd like to say about it.
All those coneflowers.
Well, first of all, thank you for this award. My mom taught me all about gardening, and when we got this house back in February, I was like, oh, look at all these beautiful flowers that we have, and I like upkeeping it and making sure it's presentable for everyone. So, yeah, and the backyard, I know not everyone can see, but I have purple flowers everywhere, and I have in memory of my dad, so he liked purple flowers, so Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the things that she shared with me, which I actually think is really cool, is she's only lived in the house since February, and yet it's absolutely stunning.
Well, congratulations. Thank you.
Riley.
Oh,
I just have one more thing to say, and that is that in October, we do the beautification. And if anybody knows of a yard or sees a yard where there's beautiful Halloween decor, please submit it. And you can submit it on Facebook. There's a form on the city's website to submit it. We would encourage you to look around and have some fun during this Halloween season.
don't you mean gory and scary?
What's that? I'm
Don't
sorry.
you mean gory and scary holiday decor?
Fun holiday.
A fun holiday decor. All right. Thank you. I really love the Coneflower Award, and I look forward to beautification this year.
Yeah, thank
They're
you.
always fun to go around and look at.
That's right. Just don't get too scared. Even though you're in Ferndale. Right?
There's some great competitions.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up is 4B, presentation by the Ferndale District Library on intellectual freedom. Thank you for being here, Jenny.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Right, there we go. For those that don't know me, my name is Jenny Marr. I'm the director of the Ferndale Area District Library, and I just wanted to take a few minutes tonight to talk a little bit about Banned Books Week, which is next week. It's an annual event that celebrates the freedom to read. This event's been going on for about 40 years, so 1982. So I wish I could say things have changed a lot over the years, but unfortunately, not so much. We still have, book challenges that happened every year. I will say that 2021 was a record year for it, and already in 2022, it's been busy. So these are challenges that happen throughout the country, both in school and in public libraries, as you go through. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about it tonight. I will say this is a 40-minute presentation condensed down to like 4 minutes, so I will do my best. Interrupt me at any slide if you have questions or comments. It's not a big deal. So let me get into it. So because we have data from 2021, these are the top 10 most challenged books last year. I passed out bookmarks for all of you, so you have it. There's also some on the back table. We'll also have these out at the library. We'll have our displays up next week as we go through. But what exactly is how do books get banned? So these are when formal challenges happen. They come before school boards, through library boards, starting at the libraries they go through. And it's a concerted effort to, remove materials that people deem objectionable for one reason or another from a library. I will say that a lot has happened in the recent years. As social media and internet goes, it's becoming easier to disseminate blogs and lists of books and how to challenge them. So with very little effort, people can now go online, get a list of all the books they should be challenging, and then how to do it and move forward. So we're seeing a big uptick in it because, I'm sure it's not a surprise to anybody of culture wars and this being, something that politicians like to use to try to show that they're, taking action in their states and in their community. So we just keep seeing more and more of these as they go through. Like I said, it's very easy to find, a list of how to do these. These were last year's most challenged books. We are seeing these all this year too, again. So big shocker, the most challenged books that come out are topics that have to do, they're either written by or on topics about LGBTQ, Black, Indigenous people of color, or women. Also a concerted effort with immigrant stories as well. Within the LGBTQ list of topics, transgender is also a highly targeted topic in books. So you'll see that, really regularly, it's not difficult to, hear stories about these. I wish I could say it's not, going around, but West Coast of Michigan has seen a ton of them, but Northern Oakland County also has seen a real concerted effort. We have not, knock on wood, seen any at Ferndale Library yet, but we consider it just a matter of time. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about how we address these things in a moment. As you can see, books are the most targeted materials that happen, that's 82%. However, you will also see programs as well as how meeting rooms at libraries are used as well, in terms of what can be offered. In June this year, there was a huge effort to ban pride displays at libraries, as well as to remove, things from there. I will say it's funny, people don't really understand how libraries work. One of the ways they were combating pride displays was to check out all the books on the display so they weren't available, not knowing that what that did is show us that those are popular books and we're going to keep those even longer, as well as buy duplicates. So thank you, I guess. So, but we did see a lot of that in June going up. So, it's just something that throughout the year things will come up. There was also, for Juneteenth displays, that was another thing that's also building momentum. Why is banning books bad? So a lot of this has to do with, it's people trying to prevent stories from being told from other groups. What it does is it prevents individuals, especially young people, from accessing critical information. It's also so critical for children to be able to see themselves reflected in the stories they read. It's also important for children to see the stories of others that do not look or sound like them as well, so that we can grow a community of people who are well-read and have diverse knowledge of everybody in their community. And that lost opportunity to build mutual understanding happens when books and materials are restricted for people. I do like this one quote that I had found that when you erase the history and experience of one kind to protect another, what you're also saying is that there's only one type of kid worth protecting. And it really is what this is in a nutshell. So, the importance of voting. So this made national news. I'm not sure if you're aware of what happened to the Patmos Library in Jamestown Township, which is in Ottawa County. So there was the library director and board there refused to remove LGBTQ books from their shelves. And there was a concerted effort when they were up for their millage in August to vote that down. A lot of what they did was misinformation. A lot was low voter turnout, so that people did not realize that this was their 10-year library millage that keeps the library open. So by them losing this millage, they said we have enough money to float us about 8 months and then we're closing. They have gotten a lot of donations. Nora Roberts gave $50,000 to the library. They are going on the November election. I hope that by having a true message to what the value of the library is, and that people who believe in it will come out and vote it through and correct this mistake. But this is what happens. Other parts that's important, obviously your library boards, your school boards. I will say the Ferndale Library Board, every single person on that board believes in intellectual freedom. We're very fortunate to have everyone on board and understanding what the purpose of the library is. But it's not something you get complacent with over the years. You always want to watch for that. There's a lot of states who have done legislation already, Florida, Oklahoma, Texas, Tennessee, Missouri, to name a few, that are doing statewide legislation to curtail what books can be offered, put ridiculous procedures in places for schools in order to go through. Michigan, we're expecting something in about the next year. We should see more legislation coming through that is going to try. That's why it's so important that you not only research the people you're voting for, but also keep in touch with them. We've been very fortunate in our districts here to have legislators who are progressive and believe in these types of freedom and values, but you have to still tell them so, because when they go to the to bill readings and legislators say, well, X amount of people in my district said, no, they don't want this. So it's important to keep that communication up. So in response to all this activity that's been happening over the last year, the Michigan Library Association has an intellectual freedom task force they created. And what they've come up with is a website called My Right to Read. So My Like Michigan. And is a clearinghouse of information about how to deal with book bans, not just for librarians, but for the public too. How can you get involved? How can you communicate with your school boards? You know, what's going on? Where's the most current news and what's happening around? It's like a one-stop shop for all the information you need. Librarians are fired up, I will say, in the state of Michigan. We are watching this. We are fighting it. One of my staff is on this task force. She is fantastic and very involved. I'm on the MLA Advocacy and Legislative Committee. I'm in charge of the Readers Group, which we go through every bill that's introduced in the Michigan legislature. Yes, it's thousands, but you learn to pick out the ones that go through. So bottom line is nothing's slipping through on us. We're going to know. There will be a response. We are going to fight for people's freedom to read in Michigan. But we do expect things to come through in the next year, so we will be watching for it. And if we need a call to action, I will let you all know that we need to write some letters. So how do we at FADL handle it? We have a material selection policy, which we just finished updating again in August, so it's completely up to date. It's on our website. People will have to fill out a request for reconsideration form. It comes to me as the library director. I pull in the librarians who are in that selection, and we go through it, and we respond. If people don't like our answer, then they can appeal to the library board, and then that's the final word on it. So we do have this ready in place. We've talked about it, and we're ready to go. So if we do wind up being targeted, but you know, it's a process you have to go through, and hopefully it won't happen, but we're ready if it does. What can you do to help in the public? As I said, vote. Ask your candidates the hard questions. Don't make any assumptions, and then show up and vote. I will say Ferndale Library's millage is not up for 4 years, so I will be back as we get close, but we have some time. Speak up. So the loudest voices right now are the voices that are in, you know, that are in favor of book banning. Be the opposite voice. Speak up and balance out the rhetoric that's going on. And support your local school and public libraries. We deal a lot with this. It makes our day when someone tells us they appreciate the books we have on the shelf. It's nice to hear support from people. Also, check out books and make requests. It's a lot easier for us to defend our collection when we say, this is what the Ferndale community has asked us to buy. This is what we want to have here. You know, so those are simple things you can do just to be aware, keep up on the issues, and speak up when you need to. You want to know more, there is a fantastic we have a library podcast called A Little Too Quiet, and we just did a great session on it called Something for Everyone, My Right to Read. You want to deep dive into the First Amendment and book challenges around the state. It's a great listen. There's also the websites there for bannedbooksweek.org, myrighttoread.com, and fadl.org. Thank you for listening to everyone. Do you have questions or comments?
It's so important, this message you're putting out there regarding Banned Book Week, but intellectual freedom, and I'm just so grateful to have a library board who upholds these values that our community holds dear. So thank you.
All right, well, Banned Book Week is the 18th through the 24th. We'll have displays and other things to give away, so come in and visit us. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
If I might just chime in quickly. Sorry, I was slow on the uptake. My mother would kill me if I didn't just chime in. She's the recently retired
and courteous behaviors during public meetings support these values. And we want neighbors across all spectrums of beliefs and viewpoints to share their thoughts in a supported environment is what we support and welcome. And as always, sometimes this is someone's first time publicly speaking at a council meeting, and it is normal and to feel nervous. And we try to create an environment where every voice deserves to be heard. So with that, we also have discourse with dignity guidelines. Abusive language, threats, bullying, and personal attacks are discouraged. Getting to the root of an issue is hard if the content is buried within disruptful or harmful behavior. So for a productive conversation, please direct your comments to issues and not people, and then direct them to this council body rather than staff, because staff take direction from us. So with that, I'm going to open up call to audience at 7:22. And who would like to speak first? Come on up.
My name's Dave Miller.
Hi,
I live
Dave.
at 156 Jewel, right down the corner by the Ford dealer, right on the alley. And I have a problem with a big hole created in my yard. And I've been upstairs and talked to them people up there, and they don't seem to have an answer. And the police don't have an answer, so you guys are next.
Can you describe the location of the hole? And
It's right next to the alley in my front yard, which at one time was a regular yard all the way up to the alley, till they made parking on the street. And when they made open parking for the whole street, now they run over my grass to get down the street. I got a picture I can show.
our city clerk will get it from you. Thank you for bringing that for us.
I don't need,
I'm going to direct your comments to the city manager, because we're going to elevate your issue to the city manager to address. And let me see the pictures here. Oh, yes.
Through the chair, Dave, could you please repeat that property address?
on 156 Jewel, and a house across the street, which is, I'm sorry to say, that's the only place they have to make no parking there. Of course, I don't have no say-so in it, but if they had no parking in front of that one house, I would have grass.
Through the chair, can I
And
ask a question?
I've been working on this for like 7 years or so. I just haven't been putting up with it. I took a boulder out of my yard, about this big, and put it in that hole, and a lady decided to drive over the top of it and got her car stuck on it. She had to get her friends to come and help her get a car off of it. So the next day I found it on my front steps. Not that it makes any difference, but it was a little story I had to, you know.
All right.
I'd appreciate any kind of answer you can give me on how to fix the problem.
The city manager is going to reach out to you after this, and your contact information is on that photo. So Joe will be reaching out to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? All
Thank you,
right.
Dave. Yeah, you'll be hearing from us this week.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, come on up.
There.
Hi there, welcome.
Hi, my name is Grace. I live on Leach Road in Ferndale. I'm a UX designer. It's basically just a fancy word for problem solver. And I am here to advocate for bus benches and overhang shelters. So I notice a lot of people having to stand and sometimes have to sit on the ground outside because there are no bus stop benches or overhang shelters. I'm from Toronto. I went to school there. I'm originally from Michigan, but I went to school in Toronto, kind of consider it home. So they have what's considered a almost nearly perfect transportation. There's almost a community of transportation around there. The system length extends 52 miles, and every single one of those stops has either a bench, overhang, or sheltering of some sort. as well as like arrival timings and navigation maps, and I think we could really benefit from something like that. So I did a competitive audit of a bunch of different grassroots bus stop organizations that started their own benches, and they really held a focus on accessibility, especially for the elderly and people with children. Things like having designs where it's easier for the elderly to be able to stand up, and also using materials that were ethical and sustainable. Things like dark metals don't contrast well against pavement and background, so it's harder for people to see. So just taking everything like that into account, and they can also be very fun and dynamic. So like in Tokyo, they have bus stops that are shaped like things like apples or melons. Not saying we have to have apple or melon stops in Ferndale, but they can be very fun, and I think could even drive in tourism possibly. So the solution, I found that you could possibly work with Giffords and Webster, which I found was your civil engineering go-to. And I'm really hoping that at least 3 of them could be built by winter so that the elderly, children, and members of the community won't have to go out for at least one more winter. I think they could be sponsored by members of the community. They could also be used for advertising. Yeah, they can be multi-purpose, and I think even for city hall announcements or things like the patio ending to beginning designations. So having multi-purpose for them, I think, would be a great inclusive idea. And then finally, having input from the local elementary, middle, or high schools, I think could make it very inclusive for the community and offer a legacy so that they have something that carries on and can be connected to throughout the community. And they're just very useful. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. I recommend you give your information to, I saw him earlier, Roger, our CED director, and Kyle, our Planning 3 manager. I think some of your information can be very helpful to parlay to some of our partners who help maintain our bus stops. And I encourage you to go look at the Regional Transportation Authority business plan and strategic plan, because they have a whole section in better bus stops in there that they're hopefully to target on. But until they make some of that investment, I really like your energy and optimism around this idea. So they really should hear and have some of your grassroots information, if you're willing to share it.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, are there any more members from the community who would like to make public comment? All right, seeing none, I am going to close public comment, and I am going to move to our public hearing, which is 6A, consideration of the special land use application at 1401 Faro. And as part of our public hearing process, we have 4 steps to a public hearing. The first step is a presentation by city staff person. The second step is where we open it up for public comment for the public to ask questions and raise concerns so that council can hear it, so that when step 3 happens, council asks staff for questions of fact-finding, they can follow up on what you hear. And then step 4 is that we move into motion and debate and a decision. So let's move into step 1 and have Kyle give us an overview on the special land use application.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. It's great to be back here. This is the special land use application for 1401 Faro. So I pulled up an aerial of the site. It's bounded in the red here. It's located in our M2 General Industrial Zoning District, kind of in the heart of the district. It's located at the end of Faro and also where Academy intersects. I believe this was a Detroit Carpenters Apprentice Union most recently, but the building was vacant. I think it was recently purchased. The applicant, McDermott, currently leases it. So on site, we do have a parking lot. We do have a series of connected buildings. I think there's 3 buildings. They're about 45,000 square feet total. It's vacant warehouse and office space. The applicant, McDermott, currently owns the site to the south, 1221 Faro, so the property immediately abutting it. They are here to propose a special land use that will allow them to utilize the subject site for chemical storage and handling. So they do produce the product at their site at 1221. There are a few site upgrades where the general plan is they're going to produce it to the south, and then they're going to store it here, where there also will be some trucking logistics. So I'll get into that a little bit further. That's the basic plan. This is a very zoomed out site plan. You can see the subject site and also the existing site here down to the south. So there was an existing accessory building here in the middle of the parcel. It was most recently used as a garage. That is proposed to be removed. In its place, they will be, or they're proposed to install some pre-engineered truck docking. So you can actually see, it might be a little bit hard to see here, but the trucks can actually back in and get loaded up from the warehouse storage on the inside. They've also proposed a 20-foot wide concrete walkway with a covered canvas canopy to go from the existing site at 1221 to the warehouse storage area at 1401. So this did go through the site plan review. All special land uses have a site plan component. The site plan and the special land use did go before the Planning Commission on August 17th, where we held a public hearing. There was no public comment at that meeting, and I did not receive any written comment before that meeting, nor has CED received anything for this meeting. For the general procedure, the Planning Commission did conditionally approve the site plan. So we will be awaiting a final site plan should this get approved tonight. There really wasn't much site work proposed. They're keeping most of the buildings as is. The only changes are the walkway and the docking system. They did go through our review, so they do have the standards of the bicycle parking, EV parking, ADA accessible parking, and landscaping standards. I think I do have some, just a brief detail of what this Dockzilla, as it's called, looks like. So the trucks do load up. It's kind of like a prefab building. And also kind of a basic example of this commercial duty canvas walkway canopy that they're proposing between the two buildings. I can invite the applicant up in a moment to go through their plan in a little more detail. I did want to mention one thing about the special land use. So what they're applying for is specifically, as it's stated in the ordinance, solvent recovery centers and facilities handling, manufacturing, blending, refining, using, or storing chemicals deemed hazardous by state or federal regulations. Staff has recommended that council impose a condition to limit some of the uses in that sentence. So we recommend that the special use is limited to only the handling and storing of chemicals deemed hazardous by state or federal regulations. Manufacturing, blending, refining, or using such chemicals is prohibited. And that's in line with their original application request to simply use this as warehouse and logistics. So I'd be happy to take any questions, or we can invite the applicant up at this time.
I would encourage, if the applicant wants to continue on the presentation before we move into public comment, that they do so. This would be the time to do that. Hi, good evening. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us. I'm going to be very brief since Kyle did such a wonderful job here. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Dean Zdravkovsky. I am the Regional Director for McDermott Entone. I have Nathan here. He's the local director. He actually runs the site on 1221 Ferndale. And Kevin Bodziak here, he's our engineer. Brought a little team here to answer any questions which you may have. We've been in the 1221 location since 1966, so we're not brand new. We've been here for a minute. We've been growing as a company. We've acquired a lot of companies, so we're looking to grow here at this facility. We're kind of running out of room. So what we're proposing of storing at the other location is what we already have here. We're just going to move it so we get some breathing room at our 1221 location where we actually manufacture and store at this time. So that's all I have. I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so if you have any questions, please.
I know that you, I have a question, and I'm going to start first. I know that,
Public hearing.
oh, sorry. Thank you. I'm not even following my own steps. But they are up here, but I was going to ask them to talk about your storage procedures and/or type of storage. I know that you use chemicals and how that meets Eagle guidelines.
Well, we're storing chemicals. We are regulated by a lot of regulators, so we conform with every regulator out there. Most of the stuff that we store is inside closed containers. Okay, so it won't be any opening or anything going at this site. All the manufacturing is done at the 1221 facility. We have already been at the site with Fire Marshal. They've looked at it, and we're using an engineering firm to go through all the, I guess, if the application is approved, that we'll go through all the regulations and everything that needs to be updated at the site so we can store everything safely.
Thank you. All right, so I think what I'll do, if there's no further presentation on your end, I'll move into public comment. And then if council has more questions, ask you to come back up with Kyle.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you. All right, and now I'm moving into the public comment portion at 7:38. If there's anybody in the audience who would like to make public comment on this specific item related to 1401 Faro, you may do so now. Going once and twice. Seeing no takers for public comment on this item, I am going to close public comment and move back into questions of council for fact. Kyle, why don't you come back up, and if you need assistance, we'll have the McDermott team come back up. If there's questions from council at this time?
Through the chair, not questions, but as a representative of the Planning Commission, I did want to share that Planning Commission did vote unanimously to approve of the special land use. There was some really great conversations. The applicant was very willing to, make some of the minor changes that we suggested. One of the things that I had requested, the original request was for payment in lieu of 19 trees. And based on the amount of green space on the property, I requested of the applicant to at least do half. And so they've agreed to plant 10 of the 19 trees. And the other 9 will be payment in lieu of planting those 9 trees. So I'm very happy that, they agreed to doing that. It's probably cheaper for them in the long run than having to pay for those trees to actually have them planted. And it's one of those situations, like he said, he's been, the company has been there since the 60s. Wherever possible, we want to make sure that businesses dedicated to our community continue to thrive in our community. And I think this is a great opportunity and a great example of the city working with an existing business to find space where they can grow and be productive.
Thank you for that. Are there questions from other council members? All right, this seems like to be a straight up easy business change. All right, seeing there's no questions from council, we would need a motion to proceed. Thanks, Kyle.
I move to approve the special land use application at 1401 Faro, Sidwell number 25-35-105-007, based on the plans dated August 1st, 2020, 2 with the following findings and conditions listed within the packet. And the conditions listed in the packet, sorry, findings and conditions.
Support.
Moved by Polika and supported by Leaks May.
Polika.
Yes.
Leaks May.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Mikulski.
Yes.
Piana.
Yes. All right, that is approved unanimously. Go forth and expand. Thank you for being here tonight. All right, I'm moving on to the consent agenda. We have a very short one this evening, so I'll just read it its entirety. It is 7A, approval of the August 22nd meeting minutes. 7B, approval of the one-year agreements for the use of the Southwest Storage Yard as a transfer site for leaves by the cities of Oak Park, Pleasant Ridge, Huntington Woods, and Lathrop Village, and authorize the DPW director to sign agreements. 7C, consideration of installation of cameras at Geary Park facility and skate park. 7D, consideration of security purchases related to the clerk's department to be reimbursed with grant funding. 7E, approve of the bills and payrolls as submitted by the city manager's office and subject to review by the council finance committee. What is the pleasure of council?
I move to approve the items in the consent agenda as published.
Moved by James and supported by Mikulski.
James.
Yes.
Mikulski.
Yes.
Leaks May.
Yes.
Polika.
Yes.
Piana.
Yes. All right, that concludes our consent agenda. And now we are moving on to, sorry, I clicked too quickly. Sorry, I don't have a printed version with me tonight. Is to move to 8A, consideration appeal of the FOIA fee estimation. And introducing this tonight is,
Through the chair, Assistant City Manager Kyle Paulette will introduce us on behalf of Anthony Esmaker, the city clerk, who is out of the office at the moment.
okay, take it away, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle Paulette, Assistant City Manager. So we received the FOIA in question, and like with all FOIAs, the city clerk looked at what would be needed to properly respond to the FOIA request. The keywords that were set out by the requester produced over 10,000 documents that would have to be reviewed before they could be considered complete to answer the request. Because of the vast quantity, a fee would have to be assessed to replace the city staff time spent on answering the request. Upon providing the estimate with a 50% deposit, we did receive the appeal as attached to the agenda item. And so, for council's information, I will just walk through the basis of the fee and then allow you to deliberate. So, a lot of this is based on the hourly wage of the lowest paid staff member that is able to perform the task. For us, that is the deputy city clerk, as the clerk's office serves as our FOIA coordinator. The 46.32 hourly rate is the base hourly salary plus the cost of benefits and other incurred costs for a fully burdened employee, which raises it to $46.32. The 1 hour search time is exactly as it seems, putting in each keyword or phrase as defined by the requester, and then taking those documents and putting them in the format for review. The portion that increases the fee is the Part B, which is actually going through each item to ensure that one, it's germane to the request as defined by the requester, and then also to make sure that there is no attorney-client privilege information or personally identifying information, along with any other exemptions which may apply. And so we have based the fee off of a estimated review time of each item at 15 seconds to determine any applicable redaction or needed action. And so when you take that 15 seconds along with the hourly wage over 10,000 plus documents, you come to the fee, which is listed as $1,945.44. And so with two sections together, this is how the fee was estimated, and then the requester was asked to make a deposit to show earnest interest in the request.
Thank you, Kyle. Are there any questions from council following up on this item?
Through the chair, I think the appealer may or may not be in. You may want to afford them an opportunity to comment
I
or
invite
present
up
their.
the appealer to make some comments. Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So I'm appealing the cost for several reasons, and I'd hope that you'd hear me out on them. And this is kind of a rhetorical question, because I know that it's not really a Q&A here, so just something to think about. I'm just asking it in question form. Is $33.09 and then the extra 40% fringe multiplier the cheapest amount that can actually be charged by a city employee to do this work? That's one thing. Does the use of the e-discovery actually be considered an unreasonably high cost to the city to charge? And then some other reasons. I pay property taxes that now exceed $3,700 on an annual basis for a property whose lot is less than 4,000 square feet and a house less than 1,000 square feet. I find that's an exceedingly high cost. In comparison, that same tax cost can get someone almost triple the size house on more than triple the size property in other cities and counties in the surrounding Metro Detroit area. Because taxes are so high in Ferndale, why isn't some of the money being allocated and budgeted specifically for FOIA requests? If the public has a need for necessary information, why burden a taxpayer requesting this info even more? Under Section 6, waiver of fees in the FOIA procedures and guidelines document that's on the city's website, it mentions that the cost of the search for and copying of a public record may be waived or reduced if in the sole judgment of the FOIA coordinator a waiver or reduced fee is in the public interest because it can be considered as primarily benefiting the general public. Ferndale's council may identify specific records or types of records it deems should be made available for no charge or at a reduced cost. I firmly believe that the requested information I put forth in this request is in the public's interest, as it will contribute to public understanding of the operations and activities of the city government, specifically as it pertains to the processes involved in approving special interest flags that go up on city flagpoles. Currently, it is very unclear and also contradictory in some cases as to how, why, and which flags get approval and others do not. I feel that this information will ultimately help to determine, clarify, and hopefully establish clear processes and procedures in approving special interest flags, or to completely remove all of them and fly only the country, state, and city flags on city property. Here's why I believe that the current format is unclear and contradictory. Back in May, myself and 2 others spoke up about special interest flags at a city council meeting. Upon a request for the submission of an expedited resolution to get our flag raised, the response we got was, "I think you should keep it." A few weeks later, an exchange of emails with the city correspondent to gather more information about the process for adding an item on the city council agenda resulted in the response that members of the public are not able to directly add items to the agenda, but instead require sponsorship from at least one member of city council. So we attempted to gain sponsorship for that original request of raising our flag by emailing all of city council. The only response came from the city clerk, who said, "Citizen requests for flag display are not considered and are at the sole discretion of the city council." However, according to a January 26, 2021 article, it was written that in honor of Black History Month, a Ferndale High School student reached out to then Mayor Pro Tem Raylan Leaks May about ways in which the city could offer more support and celebration of the Black community. The Pan-African flag was the result of this conversation and was approved at a city council meeting. When I asked the city clerk about this, why a citizen/student's request for a flag was considered and accepted by a city council member in this case, but not in ours, he did not respond. In summary, because of the higher taxation rate and the expected ability to be able to allocate and budget funds for FOIA requests, the lack of clear policies and processes for requesting and approving special interest flags on city property, the beneficial information of public interest that will come from this FOIA request, and the contradictory cases of the 2021 Pan-African flag request and our May and also July 2022 Sacred Heart flag request, I believe that Section 6 applies and all fees should be waived. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Open it up for council for questions from staff.
Through the chair. I think these are all toward Kyle. Is the same rate that we charge to others? So if we had a request tomorrow for 3 hours of work, would that rate be the same amount?
Yes. The deputy clerk would be the lowest paid member with access and training to the required tools.
The estimate is for a total of 43 hours, cost of $1,991.76. But if it takes fewer hours, then they would be charged the number of hours actually worked. So if it only took 35 hours, for example, the only charge would be then 35 hours, not the total of 43.
Yes.
Okay, so now if the estimate, is the estimate provided a maximum charge? So if it actually takes 50 hours, do we charge a customer the difference of what the estimate is? Or is it like when you take your car to a dealership and have it repaired and the labor is, it took them 2 hours instead of an hour and a half to repair. They don't charge you the difference because it was on them doing the work. They give you an estimate of how much it's going to cost to do the work, and that's what you pay. Is that the same kind of situation here? If we go over the number of hours it takes, they're not going to be charged for additional time?
I would defer to the city attorney on that one.
Through the chair, I believe the appeal is of the good faith estimate, and so it is an estimate, and to the extent that the actual charge incurred exceeded the good faith estimate, the requesting party for those records would be charged that actual fee amount based on the actual hours and the lowest, the hourly rate of the employee, the lowest hourly rate employee capable of responding to the request.
Those are the only questions that I have. I'll have comment later.
Through the chair, can you describe who among our staff is capable and trained of responding to FOIA requests? And I would target it toward the nature of this type of request. I know it might be different if it's exclusively police reports or exclusively a fire incident. So for this type of request, can you describe who is trained and capable of responding?
Yes, it would be the city clerk's office, and really any FOIA request, even if it's police or other, they're still in, they're responsible for collecting that information, sorting it, and providing it. And since we have the clerk and the deputy, and those are the only two with the access and training to the tools.
Does the city have other full-time staff members in the clerk's office?
No.
Can you describe what tools and resources the staff use to search for responsive documents in a general description sense?
Yeah, so e-discovery is essentially a search tool which is able to look through all city communication as required by FOIA. So we're talking emails, Teams chats, any other documented items. And so that tool is obviously something that is not needed in any other office, and therefore they're the only office to receive training. The reviewing tool is new to us, and it's called Next Request. And although myself, the city manager, have access to that. We are not trained, and certainly would not be the lowest paid employee to be able to complete that request.
Through the chair, I would also add another priority consideration for me as a city clerk is an appointee of city council and sworn in. And so FOIA requests can also request exhaustive documents for all government departments. And so that level of accountability requires a restriction of access to all archived documents. And so running it through the city clerks is another deliberate design by all municipal governments.
And can you describe the nature of the, if you know, the nature of the documents that were sort of flagged through the keyword search? Were they primarily emails, meeting minutes, or some other type of document?
I did not perform the search, but some of the keywords used revolved around flag policies, pride flag, essentially what was stated by the requester. And so you can imagine with a, well-defined but broad set of keywords, it will pull a number of messages that are, not what the requester is looking for. I keep thinking about sidewalk flags in our DPW department, which I assume is a common term, but I also assume is not what the requester is interested in. And so we would want to review and get rid of that stuff that's, not associated even broadly with the request.
I have through the chair, I have a follow-up question to yours. So the tool, I forgot the name of it already. What?
Discovery.
E-Discovery. Is there the opportunity to do a, I should know this term, to search, when you do a search, for example, you said
flag,
but then to, pardon?
Boolean search?
Yes, to ignore, sidewalk flag or those type of phrases. Does that tool allow you to do that?
I do not know, but I would assume that would be, the clerk says that there are and were filters considered.
Okay.
But at the same time, you don't want to filter out something you need.
Sure. Another related question. So e-discovery, if we didn't have that tool, what would be the process then to identify these emails?
That's a great question for the clerk. I have no experience on that.
Deputy clerk, would that be manual?
I have not actually used the program myself, and I know that, just to speak to this, Anthony, our city clerk, used my rate, given that it's lower than his rate, knowing the law, just for your information, but I have not even been trained in the program with my short time here in the city of Ferndale. Sorry.
Well, through the chair, it would appear that certainly a manual method would be an alternative, whether there's any other alternative available, but manually going through all email.
Through the chair would be manual, or it would be using the best search features available with Microsoft Office platform, since the city is on Microsoft Office productivity platform. but that's not designed for this specific of a search. So there's limitations into the productivity of that.
And can you remind me again when the city invested, council approved the contract to go with this new search service so that we could save the applicant's cost as well as time of staff to perform FOIAs? When did?
That was this year, actually, as a function. We've turned over the entire city clerk department over the winter, and so we were looking for efficiencies as we onboarded a complete new clerk department. And the present clerk had some experience with administration with this. It was positive. We've tested the products, and it's been implemented since, and it's been performing well.
So, through the chair, so I remember in the past, there had been FOIA requests, and the city clerk would reach out to certain council members and say, search your emails for these keywords and phrases. So in this instance, that program actually replaced the need for us to have to go through that because all of our city emails are kept on the server, and that's where it's being searched. E-Discovery is searching our...
E-Discovery would sit on top of that and perform searches on top of city archives.
So it actually reduces our time of having to...
It is more efficient, yes.
More efficient.
Through the chair, I have a process question, because, you know, obviously it would, ideally, the city clerk would have been here to answer some of these questions. Was there a time frame within which we had to hold this meeting, or could we have deferred this till the city clerk?
Through the chair, it's
present?
supposed to be presented to council for its next meeting, which has happened, Your Honor, through the chair. I will take a look to see whether whether it addresses whether the decision has to be made at this meeting.
And what is the time frame again, in which the FOIA would need to be completed? Well, the work is done, or is there a time frame a FOIA request has to be completed by?
Well,
Be responded to, and then...
it has to be responded to within 5 business days. It can be an extension, but I don't think that's really an issue in the appeal.
Chair, you can't get 5 days work done with 42 hours.
And only one person, and an election coming up.
Unless does that mean just a response saying this is, like, we've already responded within the 5 days?
Yes.
Okay.
Through the chair, it's a response with some input or guidance, and this was the summary as presented, and then they've chosen to appeal it.
Through the chair. So in the past, if a requester if someone submits a request for certain documents and it takes 15, 20 hours, what have you, 42. I've never heard of 42 hours, but I also have never seen anything that has over 10,000 documents. But if someone were to make a request and they said, you know, that's just too much, can they refine their request?
The requester is independent to make their own decisions, yes.
Okay. So if they wanted, they could come back and say, well, we're going to eliminate these.
They could refine it.
Okay.
At their own, discretion.
One more question on the off chance that the assistant city manager has the answer. Do you know whether any of the requested information is available in meeting minutes or other documents that are currently available online?
A limited amount, certainly. The resolutions as passed by council, which the requester, seems to already know about.
My comment till I've got a motion.
All right, are there any questions from council? If not, we need
Well,
Mr. Chris?
through the chair, just in response to the earlier question regarding the timing of this council's decision on this issue, the Freedom of Information Act does provide that in unusual circumstances, it may issue a notice extending for not more than 10 business days, the period during which the head of the public body, which is council, shall respond to the appeal. So to the extent that it wished to determine that there was unusual circumstances, it could, because it wished for the city clerk to provide a response to a particular question and deemed that an unusual circumstance, it could provide notice and extend its decision period for 10 business days.
So that means we wouldn't make a decision tonight, but come back and do another time.
Through the chair, does the requester have a say in that? I mean, if the requester wants a decision made tonight, we can make a decision. Do we ask if they want us to postpone it?
Through the chair, it's really a city council decision. And I have received affirmative communications from Anthony, as the city clerk, as of this morning, confirming his assumptions and comments to date on his estimate.
This is about the fee, and just as a reminder, council may decide to waive the fee, reduce the fee, or pull the fee. That is our motion tonight that we're approving. As I heard from our legal counsel and the city manager, the applicant does have pathways to reduce the cost by amending their own request, but that is on their own volition.
Yeah, through the chair, that would be separate and distinct from council's decision on the appeal.
Okay. If there's no other...
I'd like to, I don't know if it's a question or if it's really a statement, but based on the earlier conversation about the maximum fee, the maximum cost, I'm not comfortable saying that we're giving them an estimate and then we could be off, by 6 or 7 hours on that estimate, and then they have to pay more money because we estimated poorly about how much time. In my mind, if we say it's going to take 43 hours to do complete work, that's the most money that we could charge. It's on us if we're not able to complete the work in that period of time.
Well, I think that's moving into debate, but I think that's policy beyond this specific request. And I would expect that as a customer service to any applicant, if the staff are going over, if the applicant would be notified prior to hitting that cap, so that they have choices, or at least notified. But that is separate from this fee raising or not. So as this has been a policy for a while. But we need to move into a motion to continue debating and discussing. I think you mentioned that you're interested in putting forward a motion?
Sure, I will. I'll move that we uphold the fee and debate the question.
Mayor Pro Tem James has passed suggested a motion to uphold the fee and supported by Mikulski. So let's go into further discussion, where I would like you to expand on your comments.
Sure. So I understand that this decision is about the rate and the amount that the applicant is being charged, which I think does include the total amount that the customer will be charged. So I think my argument still stands that we can make a decision tonight to say that, the maximum hours are what was estimated. Again, I go to a situation like you go to a repair shop and they say it's going to be an hour and a half and these are the parts and that's what it's going to cost you. If there's additional work but not additional parts, they eat that labor cost. If there's additional work and parts, they'll call you up and say, well, we found this we need to replace this item, it's gonna cost an additional amount. That amount includes that additional labor that it will take to repair that part. This isn't a situation like that. They're not calling up, we're not gonna be calling the customer up saying, well, we found, this additional information. Finding the information is the hourly fee, is the labor. I think there should be a maximum cost to this. I think it's not fair to anyone that if we didn't estimate correctly, that we have to charge someone more money than they expected.
I made through the chair. I thought the attorney, Chris, you said something about, something along the lines of a good faith kind of estimate. So this is not really an issue, if it goes over. Is that what I'm to understand?
Through the chair, the amount that was provided to the requesting party is, I believe, a good faith estimate of the documents that it has, based on the search that has been conducted to date. And that is the number that was provided to the requesting party. That is a set number, but it's a good faith estimate based on the preliminary review by the FOIA coordinator, who's the city clerk of the city's records.
Through the chair, it's the approach to the FOIA and the costing is consistent with how we deal with any FOIA. So from a policy perspective, we're being uniform as we would for any FOIA request. In terms of concerns about whether the cost would exceed the original estimate, administratively, I could just simply direct the city clerk to notify the requester once budgeted hours have hit 50 to 75% of the request. If need be, that's a customer service question that I can handle administratively.
Do other cities provide good faith estimates? Is this the traditional way of,
Through the chair, it's expressly provided in the Freedom of Information Act for certain requests, normally voluminous, but that's not what the statute says, where there's likely to be a lot of public records that need to be reviewed and determined and searched as it relates to whether there's any appropriate exemptions, that the public body may request a good faith estimate. And that is in council's FOIA policy.
And can you remind me, if anybody knows offhand, if we've ever had a FOIA appeal on the fee? What's the history or record of that? I've been on council for 13 years and I don't have a recollection of any appeal to any FOIA.
Through the chair, there has been an appeal, but there's an option under the Act to have the appeal come to the head of the public body, which is council, or initiate civil action against the city, challenging the responsiveness of the FOIA. And there have been challenges in the past as it relates to FOIA requests that have gone to circuit court.
Okay, so just to be clear, city staff over the years have never waived a FOIA request appeal on their own without coming to the council body. They can't just administratively make that decision.
Through the chair, that would be correct under the Act.
Okay, so what I'm trying to get to, everybody has paid FOIA fees.
But any appeal to this body would have been decided by this body. I don't recall a specific appeal.
9 years, I don't ever remember one.
Okay.
Well, through the chair, to be a bit more precise about it, because I think you're asking a slightly different question.
Okay.
So I'm using a little bit of my own professional expertise here. Oftentimes, if FOIA requests are very small and defined and precise, they'll be turned over with no cost because it's so de minimis that, the administrative cost of billing it isn't worth billing it. So it's not, I can't speak to Ferndale's history of providing discrete records with no cost, but that's a very common practice.
That was the question I was trying to ask, so thank you for bringing your expertise to my question.
Through the chair, was the request made for a digital copy of these records? Because I do notice that there's nothing in here regarding the cost of duplication, paper copies, etc. So are we waiving that fee?
I don't think that the fee has really anything to do with the cost of copies. It's man hours.
It's labor hours.
For reviewing for responsiveness, sort of the subject matter responsiveness, and reviewing for exemptions, privileges, so forth.
Through the chair, there is a section in the estimate for duplication. However, we presume that digital receipt would be acceptable.
Okay.
I mean, I think all our FOIAs now are digital precisely for that cost saving.
Yeah, that would be some forest for 10,000 plus pages.
Through the chair, I think Mayor, I think, I'm not sure if you were also asking, trying to get an idea of the FOIAs that we process, but we receive and process about 30 to 40 monthly.
Okay.
So, if I may, through the chair, provide some additional comment. As I mentioned, I send FOIA requests on a fairly regular basis through my day job. So I just sort of wanted to provide some context that I know that on the sort of out of the blue, $46 an hour seems like a high amount to charge. I see rates anywhere between and I'm talking about base salary before the fringe benefits are added, because that is a function of the statute, that you don't have to merely charge the base salary. You can and should, add the additional economic benefits that go into the calculation. I see them anywhere between, $20 base salary up to over $60 once you add in all the fringe benefits and so forth. So it's a rather large range. Now the agencies that I see that have the lower rates tend to be larger agencies where they have a FOIA department with many people who are trained to do this kind of work. It's sort of a function of our relatively small city and small government, that the city clerk's office is an office of two people, the city clerk and the deputy city clerk. I would also note that I have certainly paid over $2,000 for a FOIA request before, or for the documents responsive to a FOIA request, rather. And the vast majority of that fee has to do with the manpower that it takes to review for exemptions and privileges. That's when you are an attorney engaging in FOIA requests on a regular basis, that's something that you anticipate and expect. And there have been many times where I have sort of written out a fairly detailed FOIA request, especially in the earlier days of my career, where I got a little overly careful and cautious about what I wanted to get, and would get an estimate that was much higher than I anticipated, and often had to pare my request down to the information that I was seeking. It's a balancing act of trying to figure out how to craft your request to get sort of the full breadth of information, but not crafting it in such a way that you're going to get a huge, voluminous return that folks are gonna have to review. And again, from a public perception standpoint, I can completely understand why it feels very excessive, but when you're talking about over 10,000 documents, I've handled over 10,000 documents before that I've had to review manually. And, you know, between the other jobs that I had to do, the other tasks that I had to do at my job, it took me weeks, months. I don't think it ever took me years, but it takes a very, very long time to just sort of have eyes on a document, get a feel for what it is, whether or not it's relevant to what you're looking for. If it's not, you can move on pretty quickly. If it is relevant to what you're actually looking for, you have to actually read it and see what's in it and consider whether or not there's anything that's exempt. Consider whether or not, especially when you have members of a public body, most likely communications that involve the city attorney. The city attorney's emails to us or our emails to him are largely going to be privileged, but, you know, every now and again, if we're talking about lunch orders or something, maybe it's not privileged. This all takes time and expertise, and unfortunately, when you're talking about a high volume of documents, it's gonna be an expense. So, you know, candidly, I would suggest that you refine the request somewhat so that it's not pulling 10,000 results. And again, I know that can be tricky. It takes some getting used to the process. I'm not sure what your experience is with sending FOIA requests, but based on the information that we have available tonight and based on the information that I have experience with, this is not an unreasonable estimate. I would hope and assume that once the clerk's office got more deeply into these records, a lot of them are probably not going to be relevant, and maybe the pace would quicken and they would be able to complete their job more quickly than what has been estimated. But this actually seems like a conservative estimate to me. But they may have a system that makes it go more quickly than I would imagine.
Through the chair, my question is actually directed to you, Councilmember James. I believe you said that in your experience doing FOIA requests, other communities have given you an estimate, and that estimate ends up being higher. They've had to expend more hours, and you've had to pay more. So this is common practice?
I'm trying to think if I can't say for sure if I can recall a time where we've paid a higher amount than the estimate that has been provided. I can think of times where we've ended up paying less. And if we have ended up paying more, it was probably not significant enough to leave a huge impression in my memory, because I can't think of one.
May I offer some thoughts? I think when you offer less, that is a customer service approach too, because it's spent less time. It's not a contractual fee. So I would leave it up to staff to use a customer service approach in case the hours are getting to a point where the job has more to do but not enough hours to perform. But only staff can understand that because they're the ones who provided the estimate, a good faith and estimate. All right, so we have a motion on the floor.
Ask some follow-up questions.
Sure.
Thank you. It was just mentioned that earlier about, I think you asked if he used Boolean search filters to reduce the number of documents, and he said he wasn't quite sure on that. Could they redo their estimate based on using that is one question I have. And then I'd just like to hear commentary from as many as possible about my reasonings and just why Section 6 wouldn't apply here and why it isn't necessarily in the primarily benefiting the general public, even if just to reduce the cost. And I'll take your answers and see.
Tonight we don't have our full expert here, our clerk. So about the Boolean operators, I understand those too. And I know we have a SEO expert on our council as well. But I have to believe that the deputy or the clerk who performed this estimation following a cursory search is the one who performed the correct terms for this estimate. He's the one who did that. So maybe that answers that question. You know, I could ask Laura, Councilman Laura, about SEO and search terms, but she has no access to the tool and doesn't know how to use it, and so that would be unfair to talk about Boolean operators not understanding the actual tool that you're using.
Well, and through the chair, Councilman Pollica, you used the example of that we often refer to sidewalk squares as flags, right? But assuming that there is Boolean functionality, which I think there probably is, you couldn't even eliminate necessarily flag within certain number of words of sidewalk, because many of our flags adjoin a sidewalk, or there's an adjoining ceremony on the sidewalk next to the flag. Using that example, I'm not sure how many documents you could weed out without inadvertently weeding out responsive documents.
Through the chair, I would just add that the city clerk has prior experience with this tool, and so, you know, I'm confident that he is able to perform the search without generating frivolous documents.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor and a support for this. If there's no other commentary, we need to do a vote by the clerk.
James?
Yes.
Mikulski?
Yes.
Leaksmay?
Yes.
Pollica?
Yes.
Fiona?
Yes. And this passes unanimously. So the applicant has a choice to either proceed and or go back and adjust their request. All right, thank you for being here tonight. I am now moving on to the last item on the regular agenda, and that is 7E, approval of bills and payrolls as submitted by the city manager's office and subject to review. My gosh, I'm sorry. I usually have a printout in front of me, and I don't tonight. So my computer resizes every time I go back to the thing, the actual thing. So 8B, consideration of resolution to support a regional 9-mile corridor study.
Through the chair, I'll introduce this. Earlier this year, Executive Coulter connected me with a new appointee as the director of the Oakland County Parks and Recreation Commission. And through them, I was able to schedule a meeting to discuss potential regional opportunities that cities on the southern end of Oakland County could take to take advantage of federal funding that's been filtered through regional planning agencies like SEMCOG concerning infrastructure and parks and open space. There's a significant amount of funding through the federal stimulus. Most of that funding is incentivizing regional cooperation, and so I'm happy to report that the Oakland County Commission accepted a convening role and convened communities from Hazel Park to Farmington Hills along the 9-mile corridor together to support a application that that the commission would administer through SEMCOG for creating the study, a planning assistance grant that would create the study of a potential 9-mile corridor that would connect all of the communities from Hazel Park to Farmington Hills, creating common wayfinding, branding, and seeking out regional opportunities to connect the corridor and all the assets in each community. So there's a lot of opportunities here. SEMCOG did award Oakland County the grant, and the Oakland County Parks and Rec Commission did approve the grant. One of the commission's requests was that the cities formalize their participation through resolutions, and so the city of Ferndale is the original drafter of the first resolution in the partnership, and I submit that to you tonight for your consideration. The resolution does contemplate me pledging my time and or my designee to help guide the task force for the next year. This is a 12-month process. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Will there be a public engagement process as part of this? I don't see that in the actual study portion, even though there will be a task force. So I was wondering how that will be incorporated.
Through the chair, there will be, and the task force made up of the city managers is working to create an interesting collaborative way to tie public participation together through the 9 communities in a coordinated way. One of our goals, again, is to try to establish some kind of sense of commonality and accessibility along the corridor. So that is a process. The planning firm that is selected is OHM. They will be conducting they're the contractor conducting the planning exercise and the public engagement with our input.
And then finally, are all the other community city councils passing the same resolution?
It's my understanding they're using our model, yes.
Oh, are we the first ones to go?
We drafted it.
Oh, okay.
Big surprise.
Are there questions from council?
Through the chair, is there any cost that we can anticipate associated with this?
Only my in-kind services, my time.
To follow up on her, so no match?
No matching requirement.
Straight up grant money. It's unusual. I like it.
One of the reasons we wanted to go for it.
I think this is a great study. During one of the South Oakland Mayor's dinners months ago, the city manager of Southfield brought this to my attention, and I was like, absolutely. I think you should talk to Joe and get this going. So I'm really thankful for your leadership making this happen with Oakland County. Every time the cities come together and apply jointly on something, we always seem to do well and get money, whether it's 8 Mile, 9 Mile, Woodward, or elsewhere. So multi-jurisdictional grants really do support what we try to do in Ferndale. And I think actually hits one of our strategic goals of regional cooperation.
Through the chair, does this particular grant, am I correct that it's funding the work of the task force and the creation of a study or a plan, not the physical improvements themselves? Like that would be a step to follow. Is that
yes,
correct?
this should result in a report that is built on public feedback and engineering principles to draft a plan to create a common corridor along 9 Mile. It would make it a more cohesive corridor and encourage accessibility, common green infrastructure approaches. So there actually could be some scale purchasing benefits if we all have kind of a common approach to infrastructure. That's at least one of my hopes that comes out of this.
I know it's part of the Greenway, sorry, if I may. I know it's part of the Greenway, but I think Greenway will also include our streets, not just a separated path like in Oak Park. Did the group review coming up with a safety action plan so that it's eligible for future funding from federal government? Sort of like the Safe Streets for All grants, which requires a first step of having a safety action plan in order to get implementation money. You're positioning to get implementation money. Okay, that's what this plan should do.
They are aware of that. The next this year's deadline for those grants is submitted by September 15th, actually.
Yeah, I know we've missed this year, but for getting ready for a next round of funding.
We are applying for one this year as well.
Yeah.
We're working on. It's a separate grant.
Okay.
But that is on this task force radar in terms of designing something that would help put us in position to pursue those dollars next year.
Okay, good. All right.
Fingers crossed.
Any other questions? Well, we're the first city out the gate out of the nine, not nine, out of how many?
Jeez, I should know that, but I don't.
5 out of the 5 cities.
Hazel Park, Ferndale, Oak Park, Southfield, Farmington Hills. You know by his pledge too.
Okay, so 6 cities. We would need a motion to proceed.
I move to approve the resolution to support a regional 9-mile corridor study as submitted by the city manager.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem James and supported by Councilman Polika.
James,
Yes.
Polika,
Yes.
Leaks May,
Yes.
Mikulski,
Yes.
Piana.
Yes. All right, go forth and plan. All right, well, that concludes our regular agenda items for the evening, and now we are going to move on to call to council, starting with the city manager on department updates.
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, we will begin actually with communications.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here on behalf of the Communications Department to talk about some exciting news that Kara and I received last week. We attended the 3CMA City, County Communications and Marketing Association Conference in Portland, Oregon. And we knew going into it that we were eligible for a couple of awards, and we are happy to report that we brought some back with us. So the Savvy Awards recognize outstanding government achievements in communications and related fields. And this year there were 652 entries in 39 categories. And of these 652, there were 196 finalists, Ferndale being one of them. And of those finalists, 23 states were awarded. And I think I was flipping through our award page, and I think we may have been the only one in the state of Michigan, which is pretty cool. So the first award we received was the First Place Savvy Award in the category of Marketing and Tools in Economic Development. And that was awarded to the Downtown Ferndale Patio Zones, which we're really excited about. And of course, we share the majority of that honor with the Downtown Development Authority Department, because that's their baby. We just helped with some marketing, so we're super excited to share that with them. And then we also got the Third Place Award of Excellence in the Printed Publications category, and that was awarded to the quarterly print newsletter, Checking In with Ferndale, which I'm pretty excited about, I have to say. And speaking of that newsletter, the next edition is in the works and is going to be hitting mailboxes hopefully the last week of September, maybe the first week of October. And I'm really excited to tell everybody that it is award-winning newsletter now. So thank you all so much. That's all I had.
Congratulations. See you and Kara. And Lindsay, who we miss.
But we'll take her credit. Next up, an award-winning DPW director in my heart, Dan Antasa.
Thanks, Joe. Good evening tonight, Mayor and Council. Just kind of a quick general construction update. Hopefully this week, if everything goes as planned and smoothly, we're looking to have all the streets for 2022 paved. Then we'll just be focusing on the remainder of our lawn restoration and punch list items. and hopefully have everything pretty much wrapped up come October. Our water main project leach is basically done other than some restoration related items. And then our contractor's been getting in the ground on Renson, and we're hoping to have that project fully wrapped up come mid-October. And then our contractor is getting into the heavy lifting of the sidewalk replacement program. They started on that this week, and they are focusing on the east side of Woodward, south of Marshall right now. So overall, the majority of the construction projects have been running along smoothly. I know there's a lot been going on, but we are almost to the end of construction season. So we're hoping to finish strong and get everything buttoned up for 2022 here in the next few weeks. That's all I got.
Through the chair, Dan, I'm going to have you just sit there for a little bit and also add, MDOT did notify us of the award for the Woodward Moose project. It is Ajax. Is it just Ajax Construction, right?
Ajax Paving.
Ajax Paving. So they notified us late last week that we will have a pre-construction meeting this week. So I expect at the next council meeting I'll have more full details of new plan and schedule. We have received initial feedback, which is suggesting that most of the 5% cost overage is on the MDOT side. I do expect this week to finally get a tally and an opinion on the local TAP side.
Excellent, thank you.
Through the chair. Have we done any research into Ajax Paving, about their history, what other communities have used them to determine if we're going to have issues by the end of this project?
Well, largely it's MDOT's issues. This is an MDOT project. We're just piggybacking on them.
Understand, but
yeah.
We're the ones that get
Yes.
the feedback.
Ajax is one of the larger companies in the area. Typically every year they do bid on our local paving project. It's also probably not a project that they actually want to do. But in terms of estimating, they do put those bids out. You're largely going to see Ajax on the highway projects, larger trunk line projects, stuff that's really focused on the production side of things. They are a supplier of asphalt. Them along with some of the other larger companies, they typically have the best ability to bid these larger quantity projects just because of the scale that they have, and they own the plants and so on. But overall, Ajax is a quality contractor that's been used for quite some time in the area.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yep. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Dan. Next is Police Chief Emmy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a quick update. We still have spots left in our 2022 Citizens Academy that's coming up in October. We encourage everybody to come out and see how our police department operates. You get to meet many members of the department and learn how we go about our business. We have several spots available still. It runs every Thursday in October from 6 to 9 p.m. If you know people who are interested, please tell them to reach out to CEO Joe Maulmeister to reserve a spot. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next, Parks and Recreation Director Lorena Wheeler.
All right, good evening. Just a few announcements here. We just want to give you an update on our sports. We just started our soccer season last Saturday, and we have a record high, the most participants that we've ever had for the City of Ferndale Parks and Rec Department, so really excited about that. We actually had to add additional teams, and we have a waiting list. We are the only community in our Quad City that has a U12 team, and they're all Ferndale teams. In addition, because of COVID and limited availability with the schools, we weren't able to hold our basketball last year. But this year, with our partnership with the schools, basketball is back, and registration is currently open and almost sold out. Practices will start in October, so if anybody's interested in registering their child for basketball, this is the time before it is filled. And I want to, again, just thank the schools for partnering and allowing us to use the facilities in the capacity that we need to in order to make our team, our league successful. In addition, one of our largest events, the Ferndale Fall Festival, will be October 1st, which is a Saturday from 11 to 3 p.m. We are in desperate need of volunteers. So if you are interested or know of anyone interested, please have them contact our office. We try to get at least 30 volunteers if possible, and we are very short of that right now. But we know it's going to be a great, successful year. We have a lot of new sponsors. We have the Artichoke Foundation, who is our presenting sponsor. We also have Vibe Credit Union, who is our gold sponsor, Jim Schaefer and Associates, who's our gold sponsor as well. We have Beaumont as well as Smart this year, who are also sponsoring games. And we have Western Market, who will also be a sponsor and donating pumpkins. So we have a lot of sponsorships, a lot of support for Fall Fest this year. So I encourage you to come on out, as well as help get some volunteers. We are taking as young as 8th graders who are independent and responsible, who can run games and do other activities for the Fall Festival. And of course, our seniors will also have a bake sale at the Fall Festival. Our last Family Friday Night Skate Night will be this Friday, the 16th. Nope, that's next Friday. Friday, what week is this? Oh my goodness. Okay, so this Friday, the 16th, from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Detroit Curling Club. You can register online through Amelia. We also accept at the door, but you should register in advance if you're able. And this is the last one, so come on out, have fun. Lastly, the National Recreation and Parks Association Conference is next week, so majority of our full-time staff will be there. We'll still be accessible, but we will be attending the conference in Phoenix to bring a lot more new things to the city. Thank you.
Through the chair. I'm sorry, going back to the Fall Festival, there's a foundation for artichokes?
Yes, it's actually one of Jack Aronson's, the late Jack Aronson's, his companies. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And if I may, through the chair, what is the date of the Fall Festival again?
Yep, October 1st. It's the first Saturday in October. That's it? All right, thank you.
Everyone in this room, you can look for a volunteer request information from me this week. That's no artichoke.
Oh,
I am a dad. Kills with my 5-year-old. All right, next is our Community and Economic Development Director, Roger Caruso. Roger, sorry you have to follow that act. Still going.
It's a really tough one to follow. Madam Mayor, Council, good evening. Just a little update on the land use plan. I sent an email to City Council saying what transpired at the Planning Commission meeting. We had a Planning Commission meeting a couple weeks ago, and some people in attendance. The main concerns revolved around the Hayes Lamera's Detroit Axle site and school sites. And so I went to Planning Commission, had a robust conversation, and Planning Commission made a recommendation to remove that page related to Detroit Axle. And then for the school sites, came up with a land use designation called traditional residential / community asset to acknowledge both the underlying zoning and the asset that those sites bring to the community. We did meet with the superintendent of Ferndale Schools and talked over a variety of options. I did talk with her on Friday after the Planning Commission meeting, and she did have support for that traditional residential / community asset classification. So we are planning to do final edits of the plan, grammatical issues, and get the changes back to Smith Group, and we are scheduled to have it before you on September 26th. Thank you.
And we'll conclude with the city manager's office unless there's any departments that I missed. I will just give one acknowledgement on behalf of the DDA Director, Lena Stevens, who's unable to make it tonight. They do have a ribbon cutting for Ascension Health down in front of the DOT tomorrow. I believe it starts at 5:15, so please go down in front of the DOT tomorrow and welcome our first downtown medical office to the community. Really excited about them opening up. And I think I'll leave my announcements there, Mayor, so I return the mic to you.
Excellent. Thanks for all these great updates. It was a little quiet over the summer, and things are starting to move in September. Tonight I will start over with Councilwoman Mikulski.
Speaking of a quiet summer and resuming operations, I will be hosting, or co-hosting rather, a community conversation with our Zero Waste Program Manager, Claire Dion, where we will be talking about the expansion of the food waste composting program. Respectfully, we could call it Compost Chat with Claire and Kat for your consideration. But assuming that I missed the communications department's deadline on rebranding, I am hopeful that some announcements about how to tune in. We're going to keep it to Zoom. I think even though people are increasingly comfortable in person, frankly, there's just a convenience factor of being able to log in from home. So we're going to give Zoom a whirl on Thursday, September 29th at 7 o'clock. Watch city website, social media for more details on how to log in. There will be probably a 30 minutes-ish presentation about the compost program as it has been piloted thus far, and a description of how that will be expanded moving forward, and then roughly 30 minutes to ask questions, get to know our Zero Waste Program Director if you haven't had a chance to interact with her much before. Please join us. Again, you can do it from the comfort of your home via Zoom. Thank you much.
All right. Councilwoman Leak Spain.
I do not have anything tonight.
So I have a question and a comment. My question is directed to our deputy clerk. When can residents expect ballots to be coming to their homes?
We are planning on having those sent out the very beginning of October.
Okay, so the first week of October. Okay.
Correct.
And second, just want to let everybody know that the facilities task force that has been meeting for the last 6 months. God, time flies and yet it goes so slow. They just wrapped up their meeting. All of their suggestions and input is currently being worked on with staff to put together a report. And we expect a report sometime near the end of October, latest early November, correct?
Hopefully, it's the latest October, and our ambitious goal is early October.
Okay, so just wanted to update everybody on that as well as update council.
Thank you. Just to sort of build on that, I just wanted to thank you for your leadership this past year. You, as the city council rep, have taken on a really hefty load, not only being on the planning commission and taking on the master plan update with the planning commission, the workload in addition to city council meetings is intense on the planning commission, but you also signed up to be on the facilities task force as the council rep. So you really have championed city council and have worked with our volunteers on the planning commission and the task force. And I just wanted to say thank you for stepping up. Thank you for your leadership. It really has made a difference, and I'm glad you're there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
With that, folks, we have another meeting ending at 9 o'clock. So 9:01, go home and be with your family. So thanks so much for being here tonight.